Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're so pleased to have on the show producer, singer, songwriter, author, John Carter Cash. John, it's so good to have you on here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we've got some exciting stuff to talk about with this new film on your dad.
Yes.
Johnny Cash, The Redemption of an American Icon. And you and I were talking before we got on the interview to where what an interesting, a different dimension of your dad that a lot of people haven't seen before.
Well, yeah, it's the truth of who he was. I mean, my father focused throughout his life on his music, of course, on the people that he loved, his family. But #1 for my father was always his faith. And so this central focus of this film, Johnny Cash, The Redemption of an American Icon, is his faith. And it's what he stood for, no matter what he did. If he was at the very top of his game, if he had a live television show, or wherever he was, wherever he went, he was never afraid to profess his faith. And it was the resounding fact of his life. And it was the grace that carried him through so many different things. His struggles, throughout his life, loss of his brother when he was young, loss of my mother towards the end of his life. Throughout these, he stayed true to what he believed in, and he stayed close with God.
Well, and I think what is so incredible about this film, and you and I were talking about your involvement with this and being able to make sure it spoke the things you wanted to get across about your father too, but that it showed the faith dimension, because a lot of people, and with how media portrays, artists, and certainly your dad, bigger than life, in life and musically.
Oh, for sure.
And so, but it's like, this is, with Billy Graham, and, to me, it shows the full circle of your dad's life, from being back in the Arkansas, cotton fields, and then to coming back to gospel music and everything later in life.
Yeah, gospel music was what he sang in the fields when he was a boy. He learned to sing in church, and when he got into music in the 1950s, his major inspiration was to be a gospel singer. And that's what he was pursuing, along with the Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis. That was one of their greatest loves, was gospel music. And Dad carried that with him forever. And even though, he would get up and do a show, say it was Folsom Prison, he would sing a song like A Peace in the Valley or whatever it was, and he would follow it up, with something rompous and crazy like Cocaine Blues, and then come right back around to a gospel song. So, he may throw out a hook, to reel somebody in, and then to give them the message of faith. But there was so much to my father, there really was. But I think this movie, by the time that a viewer gets done with this film, they'll feel like they know my father on a personal level that they didn't know him before.
I totally feel that way, and certainly, having immersed myself, in your dad's music and your music as well, it's like to where, like the time in the cave, when he crawled in there, what powerful imagery to find yourself, because certainly we all have, peaks and valleys, and your father had more than most, but also a huge creative catalyst that he was.
Oh yeah, and that was his time in the wilderness, when he was in there. And I think he went into that cave feeling hopeless, but gave his life, over completely to God. And when he came back out, my mother was actually physically there, and she met him, and she was there to help him get back up. And people sometimes credit my mother as being my dad's savior, or the reason that he made it in life and whatever. But I feel like my dad was going to turn back around no matter what. My mom was there to offer her love, when needed. Most certainly, but I feel like Dad was going to make those changes in his life in the late 1960s. And people also feel that it was sort of happily ever after with my parents after that, but it wasn't necessarily so. They struggled,
right.
But in the end, they were closer together than they ever had been, and the beauty of their love remained.
Well, and some of the, clips and everything within the movie and the stills, and certainly the ones with you as a little boy, and everything like that, to me are so powerful, John. And when you look back on those memories, when you see this and you hear people like Marty Stuart, speak, a close friend of yours, and Wynonna and Tim McGraw, I mean, when you come away from the film, because you've lived this, I mean, it's really about your life as well, besides, your dad's and obviously your mom's and faith and everything else. I mean, how do you feel about the film?
Well, I mean, I feel like that everyone that's in the film, for one thing, offers a great insight in their own personal connection with my father, whether it be more so as a fan and a scholar or someone that knew him, closely. And so that gives a diverse view of my father. At the same time, I think it all points back to one thing, and that's my father's faith. That's the strength of his endurance and his example because of his Christian faith.
Well, and speaking, also heard you on an interview recently to where you were talking about his love of family, and obviously his love of you and your mother and everything, and now you yourself with two small children.
Well, yeah, I have 5 children in all,
right?
And some of them not so small. But I do have 2 little ones. I have a Grace June is 5, and then James is 1. Yeah.
And how does that feel for you now, to where knowing that their grandfather and Johnny Cash and grandmother, your mother June and great grandmother Mother Maybelle Carter. I mean, how does that reflect through your children and now living through you?
Oh, I hope to be a good father. I hope to be the person that they need in life. I hope to be the one that they can come to when they're having struggles, and my older children also. I hope to be the one that they can reach out to, that can be both their father, someone that they respect, and then also someone that is their friend that they trust. On different levels. And you can't always be everything for a child as a father, but I hope to be those things for them. And because that's what my dad was for me, and I truly believe that being a friend to your child is essential in life.
Definitely. Well, and I wanted to bring up also to where, you continue to head up Cash Cabin Enterprises, and including the Cash Cabin Studio.
Cash Cabin Studio.
And I told you, it's like, I don't know how many artists we've had on the show over the years that go, oh yeah, we were just out at Cash Cabin.
Yeah.
And so that's a hotbed of creativity still.
There's a lot of great music going on in there on a regular basis. And my wife, Anna Christina, is also continuing to make wonderful music. And we're working on a project right now I'm very excited about. But yeah, there's always new music coming in there that we've got new projects that'll be coming out soon. I've got my own music and whatnot. But then I'm always doing production projects too. So a lot of fun.
Well, and with the picture of your father looming there in the studio, I'm sure that the artists that come in and you yourself kind of feel like the presence is there.
Oh yeah, no, he's most definitely in that wood. It's all dust. It all passes and whatnot. But what remains? The sense of life that my father's that remains is in the people's hearts out there right now. It's in my heart. It's in the eyes of my children. It's in it's in the light that endures, that is the blood, but it's also in the vision and beauty of hope and everything that he taught me that I hope to pass on to them.
Including in some of the books that you've had come out in the past few years. And then you've got new music coming out possibly in the next year as well.
Yep. And always working on something. So we'll see. I'm excited about it.
Well, and I once again, I have to ask you on this, to where having, the instruments that were your dad's and your mom's and Mother Maybelle's, what does it feel like to hold, create, and write music with those instruments, John?
Oh, I mean, I don't think that there's a holy grail that's a piece of wood and and steel, but I mean, it really is wonderful to have that connection, through the instruments that were theirs, and then also to put them in the hands of other great musicians who are masters at playing that particular instrument, which I'm not necessarily a master musician, but I know a lot of folks who are.
Well, and also you toured with your dad throughout the 90s and produced 2 of his
80s,
albums and 2 of your mom's albums.
Yep, sure did. Well, I was an executive producer on my father's American recording albums over the 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
But my mother's last 2 albums, yes, I was a producer on those and co-producer on the next to the last one. But that was really where I began working in the studio, was with my parents all those years ago. So.
And you're still living that dream.
Oh man, still definitely, walking the road. I don't know about the line, but doing what I can.
It's like one of those things too, John, where you can actually quote from your dad, and it's legit with you.
Oh, I don't know.
Because with all the great songs, it's like going, okay. And as you mentioned before, you were around when he was writing some of these songs towards the end.
Yeah.
And he was very prolific, you know,
Oh yeah, That's
even towards the end of life.
My favorite of his music truly are the songs that I was close to him while he was writing, because that gave me insight into his, you know, his vision, his creativity, and everything. You know, being there close to him through those processes was wonderful.
Well, I've got to ask you, obviously with the release of this film, and it's a limited run, December 5th, 6th, and 7th, there's going to be more distribution on that. Going forward with music and with your children, all of your children, how do you feel about it if they get involved in music also?
Oh, let them chase that dream, you know. And I mean, music to me is it's healing. It's my friend when there's nothing else sometimes, and it's been you know, a beautiful thing for me to have music to process life, you know, and so I hope that's what it's, you know, good for them. And then, I mean, my son Jack, my son Joseph are already wonderful players. My son Joseph is a great guitar player. He plays every instrument. My son Jack is a wonderful piano player. And so, you know, it's passing down in different ways and through, you know, through their own joy of music. And it's not about trying to be like anybody or trying to add up to, you know, to equal my father or whatever. It's about the freedom of music, and so that's really what it's about.
Well, and I think this film is going to be a document for them many years from now to look back on also, and kind of like a visual photo album with movie clips. You know, it's just what a great thing to be a part of, John.
I hope so. Yeah, you know, it truly is a lot of joy and a lot of work that went into this film, because, you know, as an effort of love, and that's what it's about. And my father's voice again also is beautiful to hear him speak in this film, and to have insights into what he believed and what he stood for.
Amazing. Well, be sure and catch it in theaters. There will be distribution. We don't know where yet, but I think you want to see this in the theaters. Johnny Cash, the redemption of an American icon. John Carter Cash, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of a Bobby Bones Show.